All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. This is going to be TCC Talks Volume 4. We are talking today about how to build your own fitness and wellness plan at home. Since the majority of us are quarantined, we are without gyms. We want to give you guys the information on how to start that plan and build that plan progressively. We are joined today with TCC's very own Michael Kaiser. Mike, thanks for coming on today and talking with us.
My pleasure.
Mike, if you can just take a couple seconds, just tell the people who you are, what you do for TCC, and I know you wear many hats. Just kind of give an explanation of what you do for us.
I am kind of the chair for the exercise science or personal training program for anybody that wants to, if they want to take 2 semesters and get a certification to become a personal trainer and start making money right away. So I'm the chair of that program. I teach the personal training prep course. I manage all the interns that are interning at facilities in the area who are wanting to become personal trainers. I teach fundamentals classes and weight training classes and, basically all of that stuff. Basically, that's what I do.
And I know you have a pretty substantial background when it comes to fitness with, powerlifting, bodybuilding, running. Right. What are your experiences when it comes to fitness?
My personal experiences? Yeah, I was track and field. I was all-state pole vaulter. I was a quarter miler, but I was built to run the half mile. I could run a half mile, and in the military as well, in about 1 minute and 56 seconds, which is pretty good for a human. But the world record is a lot faster than that. But for a regular person, that's really fast. I was a runner. I'm a cyclist. I still cycle a lot. Haven't been in any races lately. I was a bodybuilder and a power lifter in the 80s. I was really good for a regular person, but I have experiences of being on stage where, I would squat 425 pounds and the guy before me did 700 and the guy after me does 800. So in the context, I felt silly, but I understood. I'm an ectomorph, so I understood the principles of really getting strong and taking what little we do have, some of us, and making the most of it. I trained in the military. I trained a lot of special operators that were going to BUD/S to become Navy SEALs, and I also trained a lot of them after they had become either Delta Force, Green Beret, Navy SEAls. Once a lot of those guys would leave the service and they would work for DOD and CIA and that kind of stuff, they would still come and find me and I would train those guys on an individual basis. So I have a lot of experience with high level, really driven people. And I also have I've been a personal trainer for 30 some years. I had a client, David, I won't say his last name, but David, when I started working with him, he weighed over 600 pounds.
Wow.
And so he couldn't get out of bed, and I worked with him for 3 years. And by the time he moved from here to Minnesota, he weighed 280. So I've had a wide range of really high level athletes to people that have never worked out before. I could keep talking.
So you've seen it all.
Yeah, sure. Wide range of men, women, old, young, people with disabilities, a lot of different things. So.
Very cool. So we're talking about at-home fitness and wellness regimens. Let's go ahead and start the question on what's the baby steps? What's the very first step folks should be taking in order to build this wellness and fitness plan at home?
The first thing you do is find something that's easy to do with what you have. Okay, and we can talk about resistance training, that kind of what we call soup can workouts. But the first thing you need to do is get moving. And right now it's bloody hot out there, so it's kind of hard to do. So it's easier to do in the morning. But if you could go for a walk, if you can do jack squats at home, just get your heart rate up, get their chemical reactions to exercise. And so if you start doing jack squats or some lunges, and you can always look at videos on YouTube on how to do a proper technique with those things. But start with those, because when you start using your lower body, the 3 biggest muscles in the body are the glutes, the quads, and the hamstrings. And so if you're engaging them and you're doing it at even a mild intensity where you start feeling them working and you feel your body temperature increasing, that means that you're going through a state of metabolic acidosis and your pH in your blood drops, which forces your body to produce more growth hormone. And growth hormone in turn tells the body to produce more anabolic hormones. And in women, that's IGF-1, and in men, that's testosterone. And so once that activates in your body, you start feeling more motivated, right? And so start very basic and then start adding to it. You can do lunges and jack squats every single day. Don't overdo it at first. Start with baby steps. But then after that, you want to start engaging your body. You can do a lot of things with body weight. You can do push-ups. We have these things called supine lat pushes. You can see that online, where it just uses body weight to engage your latissimus dorsi, or the big muscles in your back. You can hold 2 cans of beans or soup or whatever and push them over your head, or you can do sagittal, lateral, and bent over flies, engaging the deltoids and all the parascapular muscles. But when you start doing resistance training for your body, you want to have equilibrium. So be careful about just doing push-ups. And at first, that's fine, but over time, you're going to start developing instabilities in the shoulder joint. So if you're going to be working your chest, you want to be working your back as well. You want to be working your shoulders. If you're going to be working your biceps, so say you have 2 cans of soup, or 2 cans of Gatorade, or 2 cans of juice, or you can have empty milk cartons like Robert does with water in them, or sand in them. You can have 2 rocks, 2 bricks, anything that offers resistance. Make sure that if you're working your biceps, you're also going to work your triceps. So you want to create equilibrium. An easy thing to do, if you have any money at all, is invest in resistance bands. Resistance bands, you can't do a lot with your lower body, because gravity and body weight are the best things really for doing lower body workouts, just in general, particularly when we're first starting out. But if you get resistance bands, look at the videos, watch them a few times, a little trial and error. And the next thing you know, you'll have this really good routine that uses resistance bands. And resistance bands, you can get a cheap set of 3 for like $15 at Target or Walmart. You can invest in like the ProTech stuff that you can get 4 different resistance for like $90. So that's kind of expensive, but those last for years. Those are excellent. But just, start with something cheap or inexpensive, and then get yourself moving. Do a set of each different thing. Then it's like, well, that's not doing much. Then do 2 sets of everything, send 3 sets of everything, but ease yourself into it. If it's cool enough, walking after meals is really important to boost what we call the thermic effect of food. And so you'll burn more calories if you eat and then exercise. I know they say, oh, wait 30 minutes after you exercise to swim. That's not a real thing. I don't know if moms just didn't want their kids to cramp up and die, but we actually burn more calories if we just ate. And now I don't want you to have a big turkey dinner and then do a whole powerlifting regimen and hurl all over the gym, but just a little bit at a time. And one last thing, when we're first starting out, there are different protocols for different types of resistance training. There's strength training, heavy weight, low reps. There's hypertrophy training to gain muscle size, which also really boosts metabolism, but that's in a moderate rep range, moderate weight range, but the volume is really high. You have to do a lot of sets to do that. And then there's muscular endurance, where you're doing anywhere from 12 to 18 repetitions. It's best to start with endurance training when you're first starting to do resistance training. 1, you're not going to be as sore. 2, you're going to boost your body's energy systems, right? Whether you're using glycolytic or oxidative, but it's mostly going to be long glycolytic when you're doing endurance training, for muscle endurance training. And so it allows your body to prep the mechanism to provide energy for your workout. So if you switch to one of the other protocols, you'll have a lot of extra energy, which will help fuel your workout. And the most important thing to me is when people start doing a resistance training and they're working muscular endurance, because you're using lighter weight, your chance of injury is much less. So if you ease yourself into resistance training and you're doing muscular endurance, that's 12 to 18 repetitions, you're building some strength, but the muscle itself, the integrity of the muscle is really improving. So when you start loading up weight, it's ready to do that. Some people will start doing strength training too early after starting resistance training, and they're really susceptible to injury.
Yeah, and I
That
find that a
makes
lot of
sense?
people that when they go too heavy right off the bat like that, they have a higher likelihood of not coming back.
Yeah, right, right. Sure.
Mm.
Yep. Okay, so we're talking about resistance here, and I know a lot. There's the argument, or there's the there's usually a cardio type person and a resistance type person, but we want to have that. We want to have them both going. We want to have that balance, correct?
Yeah.
How important is the balance between resistance and cardio in some of these daily workout, and what are the benefits of both?
All right, so since I was talking about strength training, I'll just finish that up. So strength training, remember, we have physical adaptations to resistance training. So we're putting stress on the musculature so the muscle is forced to adapt. We're putting stress on the endocrine system, right? The body's chemistry. So the body's chemistry improves. We start producing more chemicals of people that are younger. The skeletal system, when you're doing resistance training, the bones are slightly flexing, which damages the bones. And that sounds like an awful thing, but we have to damage the system or stress the system. So when it rebuilds, it always rebuilds stronger than it was before. So resistance training really helps prevent osteoporosis as we age. So our bones start getting lighter and brittle. And if we do resistance training, there's this mechanism that prevents the mineral loss, calcium loss, phosphorus loss, and all that from the bones and making them weak. So the structure stays really strong. Also, the chemicals produced in strength training give us confidence, right? It's not the endorphins so much, but it's the confidence builder, because anabolic hormones in a body, if you've ever seen anybody jacked up on steroids, it's the most confident because they're jacked up on these anabolic hormones. And so we can do this naturally, which gives us confidence, and confidence is a really good thing. And so just joints and all of the systems adapting to resistance training keeps us young, keeps us fit, keeps us confident, keeps us healthy. Cardio training is really awesome, and it is as equally as important as resistance training, but it does different things. When we do cardiorespiratory training, it affects neurotransmitter. This is one of many things. Well, the obvious thing, there are adaptations to cardiovascular training or cardiorespiratory training. So the heart gets stronger. The heart gets stronger in resistance training as well, but the heart gets stronger in cardio. The respiratory system, the diaphragm, all of that really starts to improve. Your body, we have external respiration and internal respiration, right? So external respiration is we inhale air. The oxygen from that air is extracted through the membranes in the lungs, the alveoli, right? And the carbon dioxide from the circulatory system is then released into the air in the lungs. And so when you exhale, it gets rid of carbon dioxide. And so respiration buffers carbon dioxide, brings oxygen into the cells. So that's external respiration. Internal respiration is when we inhale air and the blood becomes oxygenated. When that blood circulates through the body, the cells are going to draw the oxygen out of the blood, right? Because they need it. We're aerobic animals. We need oxygen to survive. And so that internal respiration mechanism, when we start doing cardio, starts to become efficient. If you don't exercise, you go up a flight of stairs and you're breathing heavily. Well, it's because your internal respiration mechanism is really inefficient. And so when we start challenging ourselves, our body, our cells are much better at extracting oxygen out of the bloodstream, and really good at getting rid of carbon dioxide and putting it into the blood so it can be exhaled. And so that mechanism responds to that. So our energy levels, we just feel good. We don't feel like we always have to take a nap because our energy systems are really efficient. Neurotransmitters in the nervous system, in the brain, because of cardiorespiratory training, we have three major neurotransmitters that make our brain function at higher levels. So let's say you have all the physiological components of a really good brain, and there's some people that don't, but most of us have the good components of a brain. But if we don't exercise, if we don't do cardiorespiratory training, the neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, those allow, when those elevate, it allows our brain to function at a higher level. We will absorb information more quickly. We'll be able to retrieve more information quickly. If we have critical thinking to do or figuring to do, right, like differential calculus or whatever, we will be able to absorb and process information at a much higher level. So people that have a good infrastructure or the good brain that don't exercise, it's like having a race car and using the crappiest fuel that you can find to put in it. It's never going to really run that great. And so cardiorespiratory training really starts to elevate those chemicals. So, well, the term depression, when they say depression, it's those three chemicals or a combination of them that the numbers start to drop, the levels start to drop. And so those levels are depressed. So when we say depression, we're talking about those neurotransmitters. So cardiorespiratory training counteracts that, and it elevates those chemicals. So not only are we thinking at a higher level and more quickly and efficiently, we're feeling good. Endocannabinoids, it's another chemical that is so small, and we've discovered these fairly recently in neuroscience, that endocannabinoids are so small they can pass through what we call the blood-brain barrier that protects our brain from viruses and bacterial infection. And so it can pass through them. Endocannabinoids, so if you think about marijuana, the chemical in marijuana, tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, it's a cannabinoid. It's what makes you feel good. I've never smoked marijuana, but a lot of people go, I need marijuana because it makes me feel good. And so that chemical is a cannabinoid that our body can make these things if we do cardiorespiratory training, and it just makes us feel better, like endorphins, right? The last thing, sorry, I can just talk forever about this stuff because I find it fascinating. But the last thing in cardio training, there is a protein that's produced in the brain only. It's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and it's used in a lot of different things. But the thing we discovered in the early 2000s, and there's a book written by Dr. Rady. He's a doctor from Harvard Medical School. He's a neuroscientist and a behavioral scientist. He's multi-PhD. But they found out that this chemical, that when people do cardiorespiratory training, BDNF will take three chemicals that are produced in the muscles, IGF-1, VEGF, and FGF2, the growth factors, pulls it in, brings it into the brain, and then the brain cell will divide. So that one brain cell becomes two brain cells become four. So BDNF, through cardiorespiratory training, forces mitosis in the brain. And if you ever studied neuroscience or read books from early on, we were taught that you were born with a certain number of brain cells, and as you age, those brain cells deplete.
They die off, right?
They die off, and we get less and less and less. And so people that exercise, we found out, start producing more brain cells. And if you're continually learning new skills and learning new things, those new brain cells will get hardwired into your brain. And the new thing that you're learning, those brain cells will be allocated to support whatever this new thing is. And so it will slow down the onset. If you have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or dementia from those things, a lot of it's because the brain just is atrophied. This will prevent the onset of that. And they say up to 20 years, if you have the gene for, say, Alzheimer's, and you start showing signs of it in your 60s, they say people that exercise don't show signs until they're in their 80s. So it really pushes it way down the road because your brain is functioning at a much higher healthy level. Sorry, I could keep talking about this.
That's okay.
So go ahead.
So we've talked about muscle strength. It's going to increase your muscle density. It's going to increase your bone density. It's going to keep you looking younger, which I think is a lot of people's main goal. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the benefits from cardiovascular as well is increased respiratory system, increased brain function, increased
heart function, circulatory
heart function. Yep. And then you have this decrease. You know, we talk about the direct effects of exercise versus mental health. And I mean, I think you hit it on the head right there. You know, the more that you're exercising, the more that you're using your body the way it was developed, the lower a chance you have of developing mental impairment or mental health issues, like depression.
Right, of course.
Anxiety.
Right, and back to cardiovascular, you know, people that suffer from bipolar disorder, people that suffer from addiction, people that suffer from fear, anxiety, there's this whole list of things that are affected by chemistry. And cardiorespiratory training really helps counterbalance that.
Right, which is why I think you see a lot of people, they trade one negative addiction for the positive addiction of exercise. And that's, you see a lot of people that have a very successful transition as long as they're on that regimen, as long as they've transitioned to that fitness regimen.
Right. They're obsessing about something. And as long as you're obsessing about something that's going to improve you, that's a good thing. Well, obsession is never great, but it's better than the bad one. And so cardiovascular training, there are more benefits for your brain and your nervous system and your well-being than the physical, right? So the stuff you can't see is the greatest part of respiratory training.
Yeah. And, we'll talk about this real quick. People's reasons for getting on a wellness plan are vast. Some people are doing it because the doctor told them to. Some people are doing it and they need to lower their cholesterol, their blood pressure, stuff like that. A lot of people, it's because they have a specific event in mind and they're trying to lose weight. But really, it all boils down to, or it should boil down to, wanting to live a healthier lifestyle. Correct? So, those I found that are the most successful on staying on a plan have wrapped their head around it for the right reasons.
Right. And, any reason that gets you rolling in exercise for the time being is a good reason. Like I said, I've trained people for 30 some years, and normal people that aren't doing it because they don't want to get killed somewhere else, they need to be really fit. But a lot of people come to me and say, the last several people I've trained, I got the same thing. They don't know each other, but it's this common theme. I've dealt with 3 people in the last couple of years that were going through divorce. And they said, dude, I didn't know I was going to have to keep this up. I want to look better naked. And of course I laugh and I go, well, we all want to look better naked, and it's so, but that's on their mind. It's like, okay, now I got to go shopping around. I can't draw anybody in with this. And so that's their first motivation. But as a trainer, I always, cue them in on the other benefits other than looking naked. And, when they start achieving more and they start getting stronger and they start getting more confident, I bring that up. I'll say, dude, your personality is really awesome. And they go, I just feel good. And I go, you know why you feel good, right? And they go, exercise. And so they make that connection. And, who doesn't want to feel good? And, people do have relapses, but we always try to point out those really healthy reasons to be exercising. And like you said, there are, people have a million different reasons to exercise. But the one that gets you started, whatever it is a good reason. And then if it's not the healthiest reason, I had a woman a while back who, she was very pretty. She had a nice figure, but she was only working out because her husband said, if you get fat, I'm going to leave you.
Oh my God.
I go, was he just joking? And she goes, no. And I thought, this guy sounds like an a-hole. I want to get her confident enough that she could just leave this bozo and find somebody that appreciates her. But she started becoming so confident that when he started using that rhetoric, she said, you know what? I can't be with somebody that thinks that way. So you need to think about what you're saying. You need to think about the way you're thinking. And so that exercise gave her the confidence to do that. But the original reason to start exercise was a bad one, but at least it got her rolling, and then it shifted to these more healthy reasons to continue exercising.
Yeah, that's true. So let's kind of break it down here a little bit, Mike. I think probably the majority of folks that we come into contact with, their major focus is on the number on that scale, right? Losing weight, which I know that the majority of us here already know that that's probably not the best number to focus on unless you are, morbidly obese and you're really trying to get down to a basic BMI. So let's talk about losing weight. If somebody's direct focus here is losing weight, numbers wise, what numbers should they be focusing on and how do they implement that?
Okay, so remember the 3 components of good health for most of us is we need to exercise with intensity. We need to do it at least 4 days a week, whatever it is. We need to eat the right foods in the right amounts at the right times. We can cheat once in a while. We don't want to have dessert every day. If you're having dessert every day and you say, I deserve it, you're going to put on weight. Do you deserve to put on weight? If the answer is no, then maybe you don't deserve a dessert every day. And then the other is rest. And so people that are losing weight, it's very important to focus on this healthy thing. We want to get healthy, right? The goal, we want to get healthy. As a result of getting healthy, we tend to get leaner. okay? We tend to get leaner. So we want to focus on, okay, I want to get healthy. And so we start eating right, we start exercising, and the next thing you know, you start getting leaner. But as far as just body mass itself, I always do body composition, like you can do skin fold tests, or you could just do girth measurements. You know, you can measure your arms, you can measure your chest, you can measure your waist, you can measure your hips, you can measure your thigh. Write those measurements down. And let's say, and I'm going to get to how much weight, you know, you should be focusing on losing per week. But you start doing that, and a lot of people, all clients had said, you know, we've been working out 9 weeks and I've only lost 18 pounds. And I said, that's 2 pounds a week. And they go, yeah, but I have a friend that lost 7 pounds in a week. You know, I said, well, that's water. And they go, well, how do you know that? And I said, well, one pound of body fat, 1 pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. So for someone to lose 1 pound of body fat, they have to burn an extra 3,500 calories. So if you do that in a week, if you burn an extra 3,500 calories in a week, you can lose 1 pound of fat. That's a lot of extra calories to be burning a week. So my clients who say, oh, I've only lost, you know, 18 pounds in 9 weeks, I said, that's really good. And they go, well, my friend, I said, okay, what your friend is doing is they're elevating ketones in their blood by cutting carbohydrates. They're losing water. Ketones are a toxin in the body. So the body draws fluid out of organs and out of muscles to flush this toxin out of the body. And so you're losing lots of water weight. People that go on those diets typically gain at least that amount of weight back, if not more. So
are you talking about keto? Is that the kind of diet?
Yeah, keto, South Beach, just all those different low carb diets. And so Atkins, and so I don't, you know, we could get into that for hours, literally, because in biochemistry, you learn all about these things that happen when you start depriving your body of, we need lipids, which are fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. We need them every day. The body functions best when we have them every day. The amounts you take in are important. But going back to the fat thing, how much fat you're losing. So, you know, my clients, I said, listen, I'd be happy if you were losing just 1 pound a week. And they said, well, I wouldn't be. And I said, in a year, if you can lose 1 pound a week of fat, in 1 year, that's 52 pounds of fat that you will keep off forever because you've developed a lifestyle of eating very healthy and staying active. You're becoming healthy. And once you click into that regimen and it's working for you, so what? You lose 1 pound a week. At the end of the year, that's 52 pounds. I had to sell this to a client I had. She was very, very obese. And I had to sell this idea to her, and she used to get really ticked off that we would take girth measurements, going back to those. Well, I've only lost X amount of weight. And I go, okay, so in 9 weeks. So I do these measurements. I said, you're upset that you lost 18 pounds. I said, you've lost 22 inches in 9 weeks. And she's like, that doesn't make sense. And I said, well, your musculature is starting to grow. Muscles are a lot heavier. Your adipose tissue is starting to shrink. And I said, so stop concentrating on how much weight you're losing. Concentrate on staying on a healthy path, and things take care of themselves, right? Your body weight takes care of itself. So now I do have my clients that, you know, if their goal, I need to lose weight. That's a very common thing. I need to lose weight. And so I always, you know, if they have a scale, I always have them weigh themselves first thing in the morning, not with me there. I said, get out of bed, go to the bathroom, have nothing on, no britches, nothing, step on the scale, that's your weight, okay? If you forget and you eat or drink something, don't go weigh yourself. If you don't do it that way, skip that day and weighing. Because people will weigh themselves at the end of the day and freak out. Oh my God, I gained 6 pounds today. It's like, well, you drink a lot of water, as you should, you know, and so they freak out. And so it's really healthy, not as unhealthy, you know, weighing yourself, obsessing about your weight is not healthy. But if you have a serious health problem because of your body weight and because of your body composition, weighing yourself first thing every morning is important. And I know in the 80s, if you ever read any of the health books back then, they went through this whole phase of love yourself. Don't punish yourself by weighing yourself. You know, weighing yourself is overrated. And I'm a scientist. And so if somebody says you have to drive your car 55 miles an hour, now I'm not saying that I drive 55 on the highway, but let's just say I do. If I want to drive my car 55 miles an hour, I have to look at the speedometer to see if I'm doing it right, if I'm driving properly, right? And so if I want to keep my car on the road, I have to look out the front window to make sure I'm not up on the frickin' sidewalk. So if somebody wants to control their body weight, they need to keep an eye on it. Don't obsess about it. But they need to, get out of bed, go to the bathroom, weigh yourself. That's your number. That's a baseline. Don't look at it and go, oh my God, that's terrible, or oh my God, that's amazing. It's just a number that tells you where you are right now. And so if you want to lose weight, weeks down the road, if you're getting healthier, that number should be less, right? And I'm not saying it should be 12 pounds less. I'm not saying it should be 2 pounds less. It just should be less. So if you're getting healthier and your goal is to lose weight, that number should be going in the right direction. Some people that are really motivated can lose weight a little bit faster than others. There are genetics involved, there's thyroid issues involved. And so some people do not lose weight fast and some people do. As long as you're in the right direction, that means you're getting healthier. It's a result of you getting healthier. And that's what I have them focus on. I don't know if I answered your question, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do the same thing, in the gym. We will do the body fat analyzer with, the handheld one, which is electronic. And it's not the most accurate, but I tell people don't worry about the accuracy. The first time we do it, that's your baseline. Just make sure the number's going the right direction.
Right. You have a number from which to work from.
Right. And then the other thing that we tell people about, I'm sure you hear this all the time, it's when I was in high school, I weighed this much, and that's what my goal is. And, people don't understand is that your body mechanic, your body makeup from when you were a teenager versus an adult is different.
Yeah.
And if you're on a healthy plan and you're exercising, your weight's going to be higher than it was when you were in high school anyways. You're building muscle, you're building bone density.
Usually,
So I guess
chemistry and your metabolism is different.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at is realistic goals to be set. I would also state for folks to make sure that if there are any underlying health issues, that you by all means check with their doctors before they get out and do these exercises. Right. But set those goals realistically. And like you'd said, 2 pounds a week, doesn't sound like a lot, but again, this is a lifestyle change. It's not a quick fix. So people need to keep that into consideration. Let's talk about a little bit here real quick, Mike, some of these fitness and wellness myths that we hear. And I'm going to start you off on one that we hear all of the time that I can never escape. It's specifically from women will tell me, I don't want to do strength training because I don't want to get bulky.
Yeah.
And
I get that all the time.
That is not possible. It's not possible.
Well,
we talked about the benefits of strength training. So
right. There's a rare occasion. If you, I studied women softball players and women pole vaulters. Interestingly, Olympic women pole vaulters, and so women. Okay, let me answer your question first, and then unpack it a little bit more. So, the reason we do strength training, one, if you're strong, you're not going to be a victim. There are predators out there that are always, and years ago when I'd be at bars with my friends, you'd see one guy there by himself, just watching groups of girls, waiting for that weak drunk one to be off from the rest of the herd so they can pounce on them. And so strength is always an asset, right? So being strong, not only is it just scientifically more helpful to be strong, because when you're doing work, more strength is better. But it builds confidence as well, right? Confidence is a very important thing. There was a book I read by Jordan Peterson, who's a biochemist and he was a practicing psychiatrist, but he talks about chemicals that are produced like serotonin and how it affects our behavior and how it affects our entire life, and strength feeds into that. So I always talk about that. I always say that as we age, in a decade, you'll lose 5 pounds of lean body mass, of muscle. And so your metabolism starts to slow down as a result of that. If you can maintain your muscle mass as you age, your metabolism will stay high, which allows us to cheat a little bit on on the foods we eat. And so a lot of people like that idea. Oh, I get to have cake every once in a while. And so I always bring that part up. We lose muscle mass. This is going to prevent you from losing muscle mass.
So i.e., the more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolism, the
Exactly.
more calories you will burn at rest.
Exactly, because your muscles are always working.
And let me clarify too. When we talk muscle mass, we're not talking mass. We're talking density, essentially, right? Because the normal average person,
right.
The normal average person who doesn't work out has looser, less dense muscles. And as you work out, it tightens them up, tightens those fibers up, and creates a dense muscle, not a big muscle, just a hard muscle.
Changes the shape, right? So it's a more attractive shape, and its strength is useful, right? I also, people that understand science, like I've trained nurses, and I had a couple people that were doctors, some ladies that were doctors that actually made that comment. And I looked at them and I go, we took the same classes, this stuff. I said, so going back to softball players and particularly pole vaulters, women do produce testosterone. They produce it in their ovaries and they produce it in the medulla of their adrenal glands, right? And so they produce testosterone. But women have a couple enzymes that are in production all the time. And depending on where they are in their cycle, they have an enzyme that will take testosterone and convert it to progesterone. They also, then part of their cycle, they have another enzyme that starts to dominate that will take testosterone and convert it to estrogen, right? And so women that produce normal amounts of that enzyme, and overwhelmingly, most women produce plenty of those enzymes, the testosterone cannot dominate. Even if they produce more growth hormone from high intensity, they might get a little bit leaner, but they're not going to get bulky like a dude. Now, these women that, I saw some of these pole vaulters and I thought, I think they're all juicing because their muscle mass and their muscle shape was very masculine. And I still appreciate it all, their discipline, the effort that they put into it, and the skill as a pole vaulter. It's not an easy thing to do. And so, but you need to have a lot of force production as a pole vaulter. And so I started thinking, I guess they all juice. Well, there's this phenomenon with certain women, and it's a rare occurrence, but they don't produce enough of those enzymes to convert testosterone over. So they hold over more testosterone. So when they do things that are strength training, they start developing bigger, bulkier muscles. That's not a normal occurrence in a woman. 99.999% of women don't have that phenomenon. And so some of them wish they did, because it helps them stay leaner.
Right. So the female fitness models that we're seeing, or bodybuilders, they're clearly taking supplements.
Professional female bodybuilders are taking steroids. They are all taking steroids.
Well, we'll say growth hormone. We'll say growth hormone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're all taking something because they can't naturally do that. I mean, the men are doing it as well. You can't get as big as some of those men are. But women that do strength training are not going to be built like men.
No. So you talked a little bit about genetics and how they play in this situation. Another one that we hear all the time, and typically I hear it in a negative light, where you'll see somebody who's in really great shape in the gym, and someone will say either two things. One, they're on steroids, or two, they're just genetically blessed. I can't look like that. The normal person can't look like that because they don't have the same genetic makeup. How much of a factor is your basic body mechanic genetics? How much does that take into play on how your body will look or transform through exercise?
It does have a lot to do with it. So there are three basic somatotypes. We have ectomorphs, which I am, which is someone who's typically, they just are thin. If I don't lift heavier weights, I will get really thin. I'll get really skinny. And so that means that we're born with a certain amount of muscle cells. We cannot make more cells, right? There are some animals that can. Humans have some of the chemistry that would dictate that, but our cells don't respond to it. And once we're born, the mitosis doesn't happen in the muscle cell anymore. So then you have endomorphs, people that tend to carry extra weight. If they stop working out, they tend to get larger. Ectomorphs tend to get smaller. Mesomorphs tend to be athletes, professional athletes. A lot of them are mesomorphs. They're born with more muscle cells, they have the same number of muscles, but the number of muscle cells is greater than the average person. So if they're doing the same regimen, if an ectomorph and a mesomorph are doing the same regimen, the mesomorph's body will respond much more quickly to the exercise, right? They'll start, really developing musculature. Also, when we stop working out, a mesomorph will retain a lot of that muscle size for longer periods of time before it starts to deplete. So that is really, genetics are a very big factor. So like if you see the Mountain who broke the deadlift record, what did he pull, 1104, like 500 kilos?
Yeah, it was amazing.
And he made it look freaking easy. It was disgusting. But you look at that guy and there's no way, oh, I'm going to eat what he eats. I'm going to do the same workout he does. I'll be able to lift that weight. Well, that's not going to happen. I would love to play basketball. I would love to be as good as LeBron James. I don't care what I do. I could have a jetpack and not be as good as LeBron James, right? So those are genetics. But us normal people, if we work, we can reach our potential. And getting close to your potential is a really good place to be, because we're all, we always try to find the best version of ourselves emotionally, psychologically, intellectually. What's the best version of ourselves? How do we respond in situations? What is the best version of myself in this situation to make things work? And the same thing with fitness. Physically, I'm going to be the best version of myself I can. And a lot of people that push too hard, like I broke bones in my back, my 5th and 6th thoracic vertebrae got cracked because I found out what my structure could do, and so genetics plays a big part of it. But everyone, unless you have a serious health issue, everyone can get really fit, and everyone can get to the point where they feel decent about themselves, right? But genetics plays a huge part in that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. I don't know if you've seen him, but talking about people who do have that mesomorph. And I'm not trying to take anything away from this man, because I think he's probably one of the hardest working people in the world. But I like to watch the videos of fairly fit individuals trying to eat and do the same workouts as Dwayne Johnson. And there's quite a few people who have videotaped it.
Right.
They can't even finish breakfast. I mean, it's just insane,
right.
The amount of work. But yeah, I would agree. You find your body type, you work within your realm, and make yourself the best version of you.
Right, and exactly. And and if you see anybody, whether they look pretty good or they look really awesome, that's not an accident. You have to have discipline. You have to be motivated. You have to work hard. You have to make sacrifices to be healthy and fit.
Right.
Excuse me.
So we're going to recap things we talked about today. The basics of eating a healthy diet. With weight loss, obviously you want to have more calories burned per day than consumed. That's going to be the very basics of it. But, we want to push health on this. So you're not going to limit your calorie intake by, starving yourself. You want to make sure that you're still eating a healthy plate. There are multiple sites online where you can check out what an actual portion plate looks like, how much protein, how much carbohydrates, and how much vegetables should be on there. Right. A lot of ways to keep those calories down. Sauces are a big enemy to a lot of folks. Sausage, salad dressings, where there's hidden calories. The idea behind a lot of this stuff, if you're going lean meats, use a seasoning. Seasoning contain virtually no calories. Those sauces, again, and dressings are going to increase that number. Sweets are a big one as well. Processed sugars are going to add to your belly fat. That's a major issue in that area. And some of the risk factors that go along with having increased belly fat would be especially diabetes. Again, diabetes is something that you can get rid of by bringing that weight down, by bringing that sugar consumption down. We talked about
really
the benefits
big
here, strength and resistance. Yes, I can hear you.
All right. A really big, another factor would be sodas, or getting hidden sugars from drinks is a big no-no, or a hidden one. So you may not think that you're drinking things that are, or eating or consuming things that are unhealthy or whatnot, but just look at what you're drinking, like sodas or teas definitely can
Right.
have a lot of hidden sugars in it. So just be wary about that. In general, I know a lot of women, they get they drink their calories and not just eat them. you know?
Yeah, that's really important. I have, sorry to jump in,
No,
and
go
sorry
for it.
about the shopping spell. I've had a lot of clients. I had a client that I was looking at what he ate, and he didn't eat a lot of food, and he was obese. He was drinking about 10 to 16 Mountain Dews every single day.
Yeah.
And so the purpose for drinking, not the reason, the purpose for drinking is to hydrate ourselves. And what do we need to hydrate ourselves? We need water. So that is the only thing that we need to be drinking is water. Now, if you're, if you have a black coffee or two every morning, that's not unhealthy. If you have iced tea that's not sweetened, that's not unhealthy, right? So you can have a variety of things, but as soon as you start adding sweeteners and stuff to it, you're now getting calories through a method that we didn't use to get calories from. We didn't get calories from what we drank. And so when people start adding that in, it can be a lot. I was training a nurse one time who used to come with this big coffee in the morning. And, and finally she was struggling with her weight. And I asked her about that. I said, what are you ordering? And so she did. So I looked it up and it had like 600 and some calories. So she was trying to lose weight, but this coffee that she had every morning, this super macchiato, frothy, slashy milkshake thing, had 600 freaking calories. And I go, you understand what's wrong with this, right? She goes, yeah, but I need it. And I said, do you want to get fit? Do you want to get healthy? That's not the road to getting healthy.
Yeah, to put it in perspective, a 12-ounce can of soda, I want to say something like 230 calories in it. You're running over 2 miles to burn that off. So
yeah,
people, I would encourage people to track the calorie burn for that specific reason only. You get on there and you struggle through 2 miles and you're like, oh my gosh, I burned 250 calories. And then you look at your soda, you drink it, that's gone. Your run is null and void. So I think that's definitely a good benefit. Look, Mike, let's transition back into the metabolism question.
What was
how
the
to
question
increase
again?
that.
I'm so sorry.
The question was, what is metabolism? And can you adjust how strong it is or speed your metabolism up or slow it down?
Yes. So what metabolism is, your basal metabolic rate, it's the amount of energy or calories, that's an interchangeable term. We measure energy in the body with calories. And so it's the amount of energy it takes to support what we call involuntary function. If you're lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, your body's burning a lot of calories, just keeping your heart rate going, maintenance of blood pressure, respiration, peristalsis in the gastrointestinal tract, cellular operations where your cells are bringing proteins and enzymes and so forth back and forth. Anytime you go across a cell membrane in the body, unless it's through osmosis, which water does, and certain chemicals can pass through, like sex hormones can pass through without energy. But everything else that goes in and out of the cell, you're burning ATP, you're burning energy to make that happen, right? And so, I've heard doctors on the radio before. There was a health show that I used to listen to on my way to Newport News when I worked over there. And people go, how do I boost my metabolism? He goes, more cardio. And I thought, you jackknob, you went to the same classes I went to. Cardio is really healthy. It's really important to do it. But once your heart rate gets back down to normal, after you get through EPOC after doing cardio, your metabolism is back to normal. So resistance training, because we're breaking down tissue and we're breaking down mechanisms in the body, those have to be rebuilt. So the amount of energy it takes to support involuntary function, anything that's going on in your body that you're not moving, if you're not moving and it's burning energy, that is what we call metabolism. So doing resistance training, we're breaking down tissue, we're breaking down systems. It takes energy to first synthesize the substrate, like if it's collagen or elastin, which are structural proteins, if it's actin and myosin, the contractile proteins inside the muscle cell, or whatever chemicals your body has to produce to synthesize those, to manufacture those, it takes energy. Then, once they're in the circulatory system, you have enzymes doing work at the site that, let's say in your muscles, that are pulling it in and lining them up and putting them back together. All of that takes a lot of energy. So if you have a certain metabolism, if you start doing resistance training, right, and you're breaking down tissue, that will elevate metabolism, because while you're sitting around for the next 48 to 72 hours after a good resistance workout, your body is repairing the damage, which is not free. It costs energy. And so that's how we boost our metabolism.
Okay, so layman's here, we talked about this a little earlier. The more lean muscle you have, the higher your metabolism is going to be, just breaking down energy to maintain what you have.
Right.
To increase that metabolism, on top of it, we're doing additional resistance training to break down and rebuild. So all in all, with strength training, you're increasing your daily metabolic rate.
Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Very
and you
good.
can also affect the calorie equation, calories going in and out. This is real quick. This isn't metabolism, but it's a little trick we can do. I learned this when I was a bodybuilder. There's something called the thermic effect of food, and it's the amount of energy it takes to break food down. So if you go online and go to WebMD or any of these reputable sites, any of the medical sites, if you type in list of catabolic foods, if you start adding catabolic foods into your diet every day, like an apple. Apple's one of my favorite foods. An apple has roughly 85 calories in the apple, but it takes 180 calories to break that apple down. So your body has enough carbohydrates to free up triglycerides, which is stored body fat. And then that stored body fat is then going to be metabolized to help you break down the rest of that apple. So you can actually burn more calories just by eating more catabolic foods. And a lot of people, I'll look at their diet, what they eat every day. And I'll circle some things, and I'll say, I want you to take those things that are circled out of your meals. And I want you to replace them with anything that you like from this list. And those are catabolic foods. And those types of things really help people start, one, their nutrition is much higher. The calorie levels, so the nutrition and the volume of the food is higher. So they feel full, but the calorie level is lower. And so they're getting better foods that have less calories. So they're getting healthier, they're feeling better, and they're losing weight. So working out, doing resistance training boosts metabolism, but eating more catabolic foods boost what we call thermogenesis, is what we call thermic effect of food.
So it's basically a balance system here. We're talking about, you will lose weight, correct me if I'm wrong, but people will lose weight just by changing their diet, right?
Yes.
Just by eating the right foods without the introduction of exercise. When
Right.
you introduce that exercise, you're increasing the process of weight loss or calorie burn, fat burn, because you're increasing your metabolism, your muscle mass, your bone density, and you're with cardio or increasing your heart rate, increasing the respiratory system, your cardiovascular system, your brain function, and all of that good stuff. So it's a twofold system here.
Right. So you're boosting metabolism, so you're burning more calories, and the exercise itself is burning energy.
All right, so let's talk about a workout plan here, because we've just talked about how we need to have a balance between the cardio, strength training, and then obviously, a large portion is going to be eating. So a beginner, somebody who has never had a workout plan, what would you recommend here for how often? I know you said 4 days a week before. Is that, and how would you split something like that up? Because these are the questions we typically get.
As far as resistance training goes, let's say if you did your lower body one day. Now, when you first start, you can do all of it at once because it's not going to take a lot of time because you're not doing high volume. You're just getting your body used to it. But if once you start getting into it and you're doing 3 or 4 sets of different exercises of each exercise, if you want to work, let's say your lower body on Monday, your upper body on Tuesday, and then on Friday do lower body and Saturday do upper body again, that's a good way to split it up. On other days, you can do cardio. You can do cardio on the same day that you did resistance, but typically it's better to do cardio second. A lot of people don't like doing that, but if you do cardio second, the recovery mechanism, the energy, the freeing up stored energy to help you recover, that mechanism is in the oxidative energy pathway. And when we do cardio, we activate the oxidative energy pathway. And so it's better to do cardio second. A lot of times if you burn too much energy, then the resistance training, you're not going to have enough available energy to have a great workout.
And that will roll over into cardio as well. I want to make sure everybody understands, if you do your strength training first, you will be less, I don't want to say successful, but you will have less energy to complete at a higher rate than you would if you had not done
cardio.
Correct.
Oh, sure,
Yep.
sure. Sure, but if we're doing it just to get healthy and we're not in a race, but no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. If you're somebody who runs a lot of 5Ks and you're doing, strength training first, your training won't be as intense during the cardio portion. But and remember, you can do cardio training every day. If it's not real high intensity, if you're not doing a bunch of sprint intervals and that kind of stuff, you can do cardio every single day. Your body recovers cardio respiratory wise, it recovers quickly. And you can do it every single day. But even if you're going for a walk for 20 minutes after a meal, that is something that's really, really healthy to do. Right. And a lot of times we eat and we want to lay down, see if SpongeBob has a new episode, I don't even know what SpongeBob is. I just said that. That's a lie. I think he's hilarious.
He is hilarious. Okay, so I know doctors, I've heard it in the past, it's typically 6 days of moderate to a high intensity exercise. We've talked about at least 4 days. We're looking at resistance here. You can add cardio onto that, or you can put cardio on some additional days.
Right.
Intensity wise, are we talking high intensity about 20, 30 minutes versus moderate intensity? So what I'm saying is, like, if somebody's only got 20 minutes, they're coming in for a workout, they're going high intensity, correct?
Right. Absolutely.
And if they want to go more moderate intensity, so if they're going to be doing a walk or something along that, they want to increase the duration. They want to do it a little bit longer.
Right, correct. And so remember, there's this inverse proportionality between intensity and frequency, and so, or duration. And so if you're at high intensity, your duration is going to be less. If you want to go at high duration, your intensity has to be less. Those two work in opposition to each other. And so if you only have 20 minutes, if I have a client, and I've had clients, in the past that they say, listen, I want to work out today, but I only have about 20 minutes. I said, okay, be ready to go when I get there. A lot of times I train them at their home. And I said, we're going to bust hump. We're going to bust a rear end. I'm trying not to use foul language. And so 20 minutes, and we'll do circuit training. I'll give them 8 exercises that work 8 different parts of the body. I let them rest for about 60 seconds. We do it again. Rest 60 seconds, do it again. Rest 60 seconds. So they did 5 sets of everything in 20 minutes and worked their entire body. They're worn out, but they had a really good workout in 20 minutes. And so the intensity is maxed out. So like Robert was saying, if you want to do things for a longer period of time, you know what? I want to go out and ride my bike for 3 hours. My intensity is not going to be high, right? If I want to maintain a decent ride for 3 hours, my intensity is not going to be high. If I'm like, I have 25 minutes and then I have to get in the shower because I'm meeting my wife somewhere, I'm going to get on that bike and flat out time trial. I'm going to go as fast as I can for 25 minutes, get back home, rinse off, get in the car and meet my wife. So, there's this balance there. So remember, frequency and duration is inversely proportional to intensity. The higher the intensity, the less time you can do it. The longer you want to do something, the less intense it's going to be. And, nature works itself out. Biology works itself out. It's like, I'm going to work high intensity for 3 hours. Well, that's not going to happen. You're going to pass out, or you're just going to slow down. Your body's going to let you know, hey, dude, that's a movie. This is real life.
Right. So that's a good transition here into opportunities. So a lot of people, they feel that they don't have the outlets or they don't have the information, and there's a lot of it that's out there. I know that on your phone, you can go on there and there are a plethora of apps that give you workouts every single day to follow along to. And the majority of those are HIIT, which for those who don't know, it's high intensity interval training. And it's like what Mike, you just talked about, where it's, you got 20, 25 minutes, you're getting it in. So, you should be exhausted when you come out of these. Their cardio, their strength, their muscle endurance, and it's full body rolled into one. We have options here at TCC. Starting August 3rd, we're going to have an entire page dedicated to it on our Canvas with the representatives from all 4 campuses rotating through. So you'll get a great variety of workouts. Chuck's going to be on there with some boxing. We're going to have some HIIT. Vince is big on the resistance. We're going to have Lindsay on there with a lot of group exercise. So there are readily programs, classes, YouTube videos that are available. So if you don't know, if you are a very basic beginner and you don't know what to do, let somebody guide you along in that process until you get comfortable enough with it that you can develop your own plan.
And remember, on YouTube, there's a lot of excellent information. There is, however, some bad information. So let's say if you find a really good workout or a really good exercise, find it other places. what did this person call this exercise? If you can see like 3 videos of somebody doing the same thing, like 3 different people doing the same thing, it's probably something you can really trust. If it's some strange thing that some weirdo in his basement's doing and you can't find it anywhere else, I would stay away from things like that. But most of the information is really good, but once in a while you'll find a clunker out there that can hurt you. So make sure you can corroborate the information by finding other videos with the same stuff.
Yep, and I would recommend, don't be afraid to research. You know, we don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but I just want to reiterate that, you know, you and I talk about this quite a bit, Mike, but your form is going to be very imperative for these workouts for a number of reasons. One, obviously you're going to burn out calories by sweating and moving, but with a lot of this resistance stuff, it's better to be able to perform a full range of motion and proper form to limit your injury.
Right.
And also, you're going to get the most out of it muscle-wise. So, for instance, if you're doing a push-up, which is a basic body weight exercise, make sure that your hands are where you need them to be. If they're inward, you're working triceps. If they're outward, you're working pecs. But if you're having them out in front, you can be putting strain on your shoulder. So, you know, make sure that you are following along and you are mimicking the proper form and technique along these things so that down the line you don't end up developing an injury that could, you know, possibly sideline you for a while.
Right.
Any other last minute questions before we get going? I know that Lindsay, Vince, myself, and Chuck, I will go ahead and put our emails down here at the bottom. So if anyone does have any follow-up questions, they can reach out to us. But do any of you from the panel have any last questions for Mike? Nope. All right, Mike, I appreciate you coming on. It was great to see you today. So much good information. You know, and I look forward to us getting back into the campus so we can see you guys coming in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
Anyone interested in taking Weight Training 101, Mike is the guy. Sign up for his class if you can. You will learn a ridiculous amount.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Be healthy.
All right.